Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the meeting of the Parks and Recreation Programming Task Force. My name is Mike Sable. I'm the Assistant City Manager and Director. Welcome back and Happy New Year to everybody. It is 2021. I hope your new year is off to a great start in these first 19 days or so that we've been at it. Weather has been great for January, so we take that as a real positive and look forward to more sunlight. Yeah.
Mike, you're kind of breaking up every once in a while. We lose you.
Oh, you beat me to it, Dorothy.
All right, how's this?
There, that's better. Lean in, just like that, Mike.
I will lean. Well, I changed microphones and I leaned in. So just again, welcome to the Park and Rec Task Force. I'm Mike Sable. Thanks for joining us tonight. Part of why we go around the room is we check audio. So I appreciate being the test case. So if we could just do introductions, just tell us who you are, what your role that you play on the task force, so we can check your audio, and then just share something, maybe your favorite reflection or conversation of the work that we've done on the task force to date. So I'll go in this order: Dorothy, Mike Erickson, then Audra, please.
Dorothy Molstad. I chair the Park and Rec Commission. Favorite? I just like the fact that there were so many people had so many good ideas and contributions. Gives you hope.
Good, thank you. Mike, then Audra, then Neil, please.
Hi, everybody. Mike Erickson. I'm president of the Maplewood Historical Society. I have to apologize. My daughter's using the printer, or she sent something to the printer. So, it's just about done. So there. At any rate, yeah, I'm pleased with the outstanding work. And as I shared with our Maplewood Historical Society board last week, the very creative ideas for financing, those are all good. And those are probably utmost important to us as we look forward to come out of this in some way, shape, or form for events and programming.
Good, thank you. Audra, then Neil, then Vicky, please.
Hi, Audra Robbins, Parks and Recreation Programmer for the city. And again, Mike and Dorothy have kind of hit on the key points, just everybody's thoughtful contribution to this task force and showing up. And, these meetings are 2 hours long and everybody just staying engaged and really giving us good feedback and ideas to move forward. I really appreciate that. So.
Good, thank you. Your audio is good. Neil, then Vicky, then Beth, please.
Neil Brenneman with the Parks and Recreation Department. It's been fun to hear like the comments and the viewpoints from everyone's different perspectives, former participants, community members, fellow Parks and Recreation people as well. It's been interesting to have that conversation and the dialogue with the various viewpoints from everybody as well.
Good, thank you. Vicky, then Beth, please.
Hey everyone, my name is Vicky. I'm a Maplewood resident. For me, I thought it was really interesting to learn about how Parks and Recs kind of works and how the associations work. I've never really been in tune to those things, so it was really a good learning experience for me.
Thank you. And Beth?
Hi, I'm Beth Wattrud with Northeast United Soccer Club. I have just enjoyed the process of everybody's ideas and hearing how it kind of all works and seeing the ins and outs of it all. So, and the positive, group experience. So really good.
Thank you. As more folks join in, we'll invite them to share their perspective as well. But I want to real quick share my screen for our tonight's agenda. As you can see, right, it's today's date. We just got through introductions. We will do kind of just a high level review of the task forces just to kind of refresh. I know it's been, believe it or not, it's been since September. And maybe it feels like it's been since March, or maybe, I don't know, but we'll kind of just do a high level kind of review of the task force. Then we'll talk about the survey results from the National Citizen Survey. It's survey instrument that the city uses to get feedback from residents. And then we'll kind of finalize our recommendations, and then we'll talk about the council presentation, of which we will have to present to the city council on the 25th. So at a really high level, I think the work of the task force was really, and thank you, Beth, for the compliment. I mean, the process, we tried to be thoughtful about it, really try to get good onboarding, understand who was on the task force, what role they could play, really tap into their experience. We did a deep dive into kind of how did we get here with regard to the budget and some of the financials and some of the challenges that the city faced. We then did a deep dive into Audra and Neil's worlds of, how do programs work? How do all of the systems work? How do the parks work? Then we did a deep dive in understanding kind of how the YMCA functions here locally, and then at a sort of system-wide, region-wide approach. And then we really did another dive into what I call the sort of the 5 service areas: youth programs, youth sports, adult programs, adult sports, and then virtual. And that was, I think, a really important piece to understand. And, thank you to Neil. If you remember, I call it the green chart because it had there was a lot of moving parts, and he really did a nice job of summarizing and explaining kind of how that worked. And then we spent some pretty significant time talking about recommendations, and we kind of identified 6 broad categories. And just as a reminder, I'll pop them up on my screen again, but there's 6 areas around the importance of the physical asset, the importance of partnership, the importance of our, business model and service, importance of regional cooperatives, whether that be other cities or whether that be associations. We also talked a lot about financial investments, both ongoing day-to-day kind of things, but also making sure that we're keeping up with the turf and we're keeping the buildings up and the fields are adequate. And then values and philosophy. And again, that wasn't done in any order, but I think that the importance of talking about the value that park brings to a community was really important. And so what we're here today then, and we also talked about our community survey and how does the information from a broad cross-section of residents help shape our recommendations. And so I realize I just did 4 months worth of work in about 3 minutes. So you may have questions, or you may want to reinforce a point that I missed or talk further. So I'll open it up to the 4 of you. Is there anything else you'd want to share about kind of the work and the process to date? And again, you can jump on in, wave your hands, put it in the chat box. Mike Erickson's hand is moving, so I think he's going to say something.
No, I just wanted to say, I think it was really important for all of us in terms of, Neil, that work that you had done, and certainly Audra to the same extent, but getting some of the peer cities to see exactly what they're doing, and so that we can learn and certainly share that information with the city council, ultimately the citizens of Maplewood. Anyway, it was a lot of roll up the sleeves and get her done, but that data is really, really important as we move forward.
Thank you. Others? All right, I counted to 10 and nobody was there. I'm ready to move on if that's okay. And please, if something pops in your head, please don't hesitate. But I do want to talk a little bit of this next section around the community survey. And this is something that the city tries to do every 2 years. It is the city hires a firm that does this work professionally across the country. And they identify 1,200 households, just random addresses. And we identify those addresses and we send them notes, and they say that you're going to get a community survey. We send them a second note. We put a note in the city's monthly newsletter. We put it up on our website. And then the survey is launched, and we try to do follow-up to make sure that these people submit their survey. If they get selected, they can either go online and complete it, or they can fill out the paper form and mail it in. And we had a mix of both. At the end of the day, 437 households answered the survey. And from our standpoint, that is a pretty consistent response rate that we see typically around the country. And then what they do is they take the demographic data of the people who filled it out, and they compare it against what we really are based on our census. And because they're mathematicians and statisticians, they're able to adjust the answers to actually reflect the community. So if you had only a few younger families take it, those were weighted potentially higher. If you had a lot of population that took it, they would weight them slightly different. It's a science. I'm not smart enough to know exactly how it works, but I trust the process, and I trust the math experts. But what we try to do is we do this every 2 years just to get a sense for how is the city doing. The survey is about 150 questions. We ask everything from how are the traffic lights, to how are the police responses, to how are the parks, to even, are you happy to live here? Really some quality of life questions, some public safety questions. It really covers the full spectrum. And what we did is we identified several of them that were very specific to parks. And I'm going to share my screen here. And we put it in a pretty fancy format. And we said, how would you rate the overall quality of park and rec opportunities? Would you rate them positively or negatively? And 82% have a high opinion of our parks and recreation services. We asked about availability of walking paths and trails. And that was, consistent 83%. And I think this became even more important in the minds of folks when you couldn't go everywhere. So parks and trails and safe spaces outside were really important. And then the overall rating for city parks was 85%. People had a very positive impression about the parks that they have. Then we go down here around, this was very specific to our recreation centers and facilities, whether that be Wakefield or however they interpreted that. Again, you can see pretty positive scores. Fitness opportunities were there. Recreational opportunities was down relative to the other answers. And we think part of that was there just weren't enough opportunities. In a COVID world, you couldn't do as much. And so people, I think, knowingly rated that slightly lower. But they, fully 3/4 of those folks appreciated the quality of the program and the classes. And then lastly, there's 6 other pieces. Sidewalk maintenance and ease of walking and ease of traveling by bike rated similarly. I think for I know Mike Erickson talks about walking his neighborhood every day. You probably have a sense for what the sidewalks are like or how easy it is to get around on a bike. And I know everybody else gets that sense too, but those are rated slightly lower, which is an indicator for us that we could do a little bit a better job on street maintenance and sidewalk maintenance. This is really helpful information for city staff to get better. Then we talk about overall health and wellness opportunities, again, lower than the parks attitude, but still very positive. People like the opportunities that they have. I included this slide down in the very bottom here about overall sense of community. This is an interesting one. So we ask people, do you like to live in the city of Maplewood? And fully 85% of the people say yes, but only 48% of the people feel connected to the city. So they might have a real strong connection to their neighborhood or to, their church or their school. They like where they live, but they don't feel a strong relationship with the city. And that's, I think, an opportunity for us to really emphasize what this, the city connection and the role that the city can play in that. And then the last piece that we asked about was very specific, is how should the city pay for rec programs and nature center education in the future? And virtually no one wants to outsource it or privatize it. They see a role for the city. The most common response was to create a cost-sharing partnership. They did talk about increasing participant fees, which was a portion of that. But when we asked folks would you be okay with a tax increase to keep the system funded at the current levels, fully a third of the people said yes to that. And I don't have any grand pronouncements for what this means, but I think there's an appetite for trying something different. And so if you take property tax increase potential and cost sharing partnerships, that's about 70% of the population is willing to do both of those things, one or both of those things. And so I know I just gave you a 150 question survey in a very short amount of time. So I will stop sharing and ask the group if you have any questions. And if you're interested in seeing other survey questions, I have it available. It just might take me a second to go find it. But gauging gut reactions about what folks saw or heard. And I'll open it up. Go ahead, Mike.
Who's seen this data? Has staff, department heads, the city council?
So the city staff has seen, and I would say the department leadership team. So the department directors and the city manager have seen this. The city council has seen this one pager that we put together, and we also put one together for the Nature Center Task Force.
Yep.
The whole survey is being shared with the council on Monday, the 25th.
Okay.
And they'll get all 150 questions, and you'll be able to see all of it.
Okay. It's again, good data, and I think it's important that the city does do it every 2 years. So you've got, as you've said, with the overall sense of community. Okay, so there's an opportunity, absolutely, and that's the way to look at it. And you could say, well, geez, but again, and the other question is, this survey was completed when?
This survey was completed the last week of September up until November 24th.
Thank you.
So a 2-month time frame in fall.
Mike,
Yes, Dorothy.
do you have the comparison to what the numbers were 2 years ago?
I do in most cases. Yes. It takes me a second to find them.
Just off the top of your head. I mean, it's, 82 to 85% satisfaction. Has that been common across the board for however many years the survey's been done?
So I'll say this, in the overall quality of parks and recreation opportunities has stayed the same.
Okay.
Paths and walking trails was rated higher. City parks, the last time we did the survey, they rated 81. This year was 85 for overall rating. Rec programming classes went down from 77 to 75, and then rec centers or facilities went up a couple. So by and large, they've stayed very close, a few percentage points, but not anything dramatic. So it's always been a draw for the city. And so it's an important part of our work. And so I think that's pretty consistent. Go ahead, Beth.
Was there an opportunity for people to do like open comments?
Unfortunately, no.
Uh-huh.
And that's one of the things that we, as staff, sort of see as an opportunity for us to go out and do some focus groups and to get some dive deeper into why people answered the questions that they did. I think if it were more robust, purely online survey, we would have got more, but a lot of folks did it on paper. We know 191 people, I think, took it on paper. And so they just didn't have an opportunity to write it out.
That's unfortunate because, I mean, we paid for, or Maplewood paid for a survey, and then now we have to do work to get like deeper.
Mm-hmm. It's one of the challenges of the tool that we use.
Mm-hmm. Oh, also, I was going to say, you know, people aren't feeling the sense of community.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great way for us to say, well, that's why we want to have programming and bringing the communities together. I know a lot of parents like joining different clubs for themselves, but for their kids, that's where they meet new friends, like adult friends, and then the kids meet friends. And
yeah,
so
there really is an opportunity. And I think, you know, even something as, and I don't want to say that it's easy to pull off, but community festivals and, you know, the 4th of July where people can kind of come together and that's overall sense of community. I think there's an opportunity to really capitalize on, you know, people wanting to get together and wanting to connect more.
Growing up, we used to have craft wagons like throughout the summer. And so the craft wagon would show up to a park, and then, you know, you pay $1, I think it was like $1 or less or whatever it was. And then all the neighborhood kids would come and you do a craft. And sometimes it was like a rec wagon where they just bring a whole bunch of balls or jump ropes or whatever. And, you know, then they would change all the different parks. So you could travel to a park or just go to your closest park.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of opportunity.
Go ahead, Mike.
No, go ahead.
Oh, Beth, to that point, my hometown of Brooklyn Park, Brooklyn Center, they're both award-winning park and rec programs. They call it Rec on the Go, and that's the new norm. You take it to them, and this dates back, and you would know this, Audra and Neil. They just bring it to them, and they do it in a safe way, and yeah, and it does build community in that neighborhood there. Yep. And they got their vans, Rec on the Go, both BP and BC. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And I liked it, like when we were growing up, it was like young adults or teenagers kind of running it. So then the kids got to look up to a teenager, and then the teenagers got to mentor the little kids, and it just builds, you know, it's fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead, Vicki.
I was gonna say what stood out for me was the willingness for people to increase fees and things like that, even if it meant more taxes. I feel like we didn't talk about that too much, but that feels like a really positive sign.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. The Nature Center Task Force got that same question, and the results were this. So they got the same results, and they said, you know, maybe the answer isn't 100% of restoring property taxes, but maybe it's 50%, or maybe it's some other number. And so the answer doesn't have to be 0. And I know that they will actually probably say that as part of their, you know, presentation to the city council. They're going to be willing to say, listen, you can't, this is really important to the community. And here's here's some evidence that shows that. We want to continue to work with the council and our partners. And I think that's going to be an important message to share. If this group thinks that's important, I wouldn't shy away from saying it. If you're comfortable saying it, I think it's what the group has talked about. I think there's some evidence from the community that there's some support there. I can't say that it's going to happen, yes or no, but I think if it's an important piece to share, I think, yeah, absolutely. Neil or Audra, do you want to add anything?
Sure. Just can you remind me of the question again, just to make sure I'm, because I'm thinking a lot of things while everyone's talking, and I'm kind of going off on some of the things they're saying. So
either something that stood out to you or things that you want to make sure that we capture in terms of the public perception data?
Sure. I think it was important to point out, it's not an excuse by any means, but the fact that, you know, we really didn't do, other than a few online programs, our recreation programming was shut down by the beginning of April. There just wasn't any. And so I think that really was an impact on, and there was people missed things that were offered. So I think that was reflected in the survey a little bit. I was really happy to see that we had a high score for quality of recreation programming that was offered, that people had that perception. And then just the 85% satisfaction with parks. I think now more than ever, people have really realized the value of parks, trails, open spaces, especially with the challenges of COVID-19. And I don't see that changing, you know, anytime soon. So there's got to be a real big priority on making sure we've got those spaces for people to safely get out and recreation, socialize, however it's going to look in 2021 and moving forward. I think the survey reflected that it's really important to people. So
Thank you.
sure.
Neil?
I think the kind of same comment that you had made, and then that Vicky had kind of commented about regarding the willingness, it seems like from some of the, or from 50 to 40% of the respondents, with whether it's an increase in taxes or the cost sharing partnerships. I think there's definitely kind of an opportunity there as far as with whatever we kind of dig into as far as recommendations on the delivery model for programs, but maybe even a combination of something that it does show right off the bat. There is that willingness or appetite to take on a little bit more as a community citizen to be able to do some of those things.
Good. Thank you. We can always go back to the survey data, and if there's a burning question or something you want to see, just certainly let me know if that's something you're interested in. But I do want to open up, if I can find it, is just go through the recommendations one last time to make sure that they reflect kind of where we left them. And so get that out of there. Again, we talked about physical assets, and I changed these a little bit, just some of the duplicate wording, but we recommend evaluating existing priorities and assets around properties and assets, rinks, buildings, fields, to be sure we take care of them to preserve existing infrastructure at a high level, maintaining our physical inspections on a daily, weekly, monthly basis to make sure that they're preserved. Evaluate gym usage and fee structures for 623 and the Y to make sure that evaluate the rates for each. And then an inventory map of existing parks and amenities, fields, courts, diamonds, etc. Something that can be shared widely. Use the master plan information to guide decision-making. Understand our demographics and which sports are fast growing. And then medium term is develop a survey of users and share that broadly, including Twin Cities metro area. And then lastly, identify groups who are looking for space and providing access to their needs on a long-term basis, really kind of tailoring our service that is there. Anything that we are missing in this category of maintaining physical assets?
I assume staff is going to be doing all of these things?
On this one, yes. We can handle all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, does it need to be identified that staff will do these things? I don't know. Is it just kind of understood?
I think it's understood, but I mean, I'm not the one to actually do the work, so I'm going to look at Audra and Neil and say, how do you want to say it?
I think adding staff in is fine, because it does say we recommend, and it, I honestly can't remember now if with the other task force, if they were worded that way, or it was just the recommendation itself without the we. So if we leave the we's on, maybe we do specify staff. That's a good idea, Dorothy. Otherwise, we recommend staff. Yeah.
Okay. All right, others.
Looks good.
Okay. With regard to partnership and prioritization and review existing operating joint powers agreements with athletic associations, create standard templates and define what each partner is expected to deliver. Review existing agreements, does it still meet the needs of the partners? Identifying what we can offer and what we hope to gain from a partner, establishing our own criteria needed. Identify joint powers agreements with school districts, if we have any. Evaluate our YMCA partnership, sit down directly with leadership to discuss how best to jointly deliver if possible. Evaluate community gym agreements with 623. Widely share.
Hey, Mike, if I could, one question.
Yeah.
Should we in parentheses put for, and we know this, but I don't want to assume everybody knows it, but like, for example, for ISD 622, in parentheses, just add NSP for North St. Paul, and then 623 is Roseville. Would that be helpful?
Sure.
Okay.
Yes. Really get a sharing widely kind of our list of existing partners and kind of create that master template. Invite existing partners and interview associations so we get a better sense for where their needs are going forward. Community surveys, continue to use community surveys to identify new opportunities and needs with residents. And then information sharing with other cities, programs, and services. And I'll keep going down because I'm running out of space, but medium term, how do we recommend?
I have one say first.
Yeah, go ahead, Neil.
I was kind of looking at them and the widely share list of existing partners and whatnot. I thought maybe changing it to compile list of existing partners and then kind of eliminate the widely sharing it and then tying that in with the explore the information sharing of other cities, programs, and services. And think of like, if we combine a list of our cities partners and then explore the information sharing with other cities, like instead of saying why are they sharing list of existing partners, make dialing it into ours specifically, and then kind of that can tie into the other one.
Got it. Right. That's helpful. Yeah, it really is a two-step piece.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Really, this medium-term one is really focused on school districts to help them focus beyond just this year. I don't know whose kids are in school and not in school, but getting them back to some sense of normal would be great. And helping our school districts get there, I think, is an important piece over the next year, and I'll say calendar year. And then long-term, really identify maybe potentially the big needs to try to get ahead of the curve, thinking big about where recreation is going and where athletics is potentially going. And this is also an opportunity for potential outreach to specific cultural communities. So that's kind of that long-term partnership piece that makes some sense. Any other edits, suggestions?
Looks good.
Okay. Again, this is what I refer to as the Neil chart in green, around service levels. And I've got make advocacy a higher priority for our message. It's not just a park, it's a community. We're actually helping build connection and helping our community thrive through these efforts. Keep in mind that COVID guidelines still exist, so we have to get through this phase. Building contingency plans for changes to the pandemic. If there's a new strain or a new vaccine or I'm sure there's going to be something that's new and different and will change mid-year. I'm committed to being adaptable. That's my sort of mindset. But and then also planning for some increased demand as people do emerge from this. Pent-up demand for activities and play, in the example of the golf courses in the area. We also recommend identifying who is best able to deliver in each of those 5 areas. Who should do youth sports, who should do adult sports, etc. Staying in contact with existing employees, refs, umps, scorekeepers, and then potentially break out sports programming by season and only focus on 2 or 3 in each area as a way to capture change in volume. Look at other peer cities to see what they're choosing to focus on, and we could potentially fill the gap. And then, go ahead.
I was saying a recommendation for those 2 specifically is maybe adding in there some kind of a upon identifying the delivery method of programs in Maplewood, break out the sports programming by season so that it's kind of tied into the one before. Otherwise, I think it should be somehow qualified in that before. So under the breakout the sports programming by season.
Yep.
Putting that upon identifying the delivery method of programs in Maplewood, break out the sports programming by season.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, if it's not, it seems like if it's just there and we don't have that part established yet. Does that make sense?
Yeah, there's a natural sequence to some of these.
Gotcha.
Right? Is that what you mean?
Yeah. Like, and I don't know, I guess how, kind of drilled down you want that it wants to get it. If we're just assuming that the council is understanding that those would be after the identifying, kind of who's delivering what models or what programs, what us associations, community ed, that kind of thing.
Yep. So I just put in after we've identified them.
Gotcha.
Okay, good. And then when we talk about capturing the demand surge, could we sustain momentum at higher levels based on how things shake out? You could potentially charge more for more competitive things, or you could charge more for more family things. There's really an opportunity once you have chosen sort of your direction to really capture the marketplace differently. Any edits there?
Looks good.
Okay. Regional cooperatives. Exploring regional information regional information sharing systems across boundaries. Identify affinity group partners. Find out which communities are currently practicing and what areas they're open to conversation with other ways of working. And I think Little Canada was expressed some interest. Oakdale has expressed interest. So there's already some conversations happening. Look at information sharing platforms and technology, potentially using shared technology systems. We can create a database to begin this sharing, and then Athletic Management Association information, really in a kind of a centralized database. I think there's a whole theme around leveraging technology differently. I think it's an opportunity there. Again, joint publications with partner cities and regional entities, finding the right partners at city council in those areas, or potentially looking at the Ramsey County League of Local Government could potentially be a home for that. And
Hey,
so
Mike,
those,
if I
Yeah.
could, just a question, just again for clarification.
Yep.
Not necessarily us, but if you want to put for watershed, we don't need to put the full term, but if you want to put watershed district, just for a little bit of formality.
Yep.
Obviously, they're over in Little Canada. They're stationed there, but
Yep.
Yeah. There you go. Thanks.
You're welcome.
And Mike, I don't know, one that I'm kind of stuck on right before in the short term is just, I don't know if it's the way it's worded or it's just my brain tonight, but I don't know which number it is. Is it the third one? The find out which communities are currently practicing, what areas they're open to conversation with other ways of working. That one, it reads a little strange to me. Just,
Yep.
I'm not quite sure what it's trying to say. Looking at it with fresh eyes.
It's funny you mentioned that because I had on my notes. What are we like? I had on my notes specifically. What are we trying to say here? And I was trying to run through that as we were going down the list, trying to kind of refresh.
Practicing, you mean delivering programming or delivering service? Yeah.
And
Okay.
identify what areas they're open to
Yep. There you go.
I would
Potential
say open
collaboration
to-
or something.
considering other ways of working.
There you go.
How's that look? Like the number 8 doesn't belong in there.
Right.
Mhm. Yeah, that's what we said. Yeah.
And find what areas they're open to considering other ways. And
And what-
find and out in what areas or so, let's see.
And identify in
Yeah.
what areas.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
This really is an important one that will require, I think, a combination potentially of staff and then either some task force members or some rec commission members or, somebody else, maybe city council members. So this one might be a little bit more effort, but I think really the long-term payoff is potentially pretty significant. So.
Amen.
Financial investments. The YMCA is a key partner and they've got their own financial challenges. And so really a deep dive into their business model. Again, consider higher charges, higher service fees, and evaluate our pricing. Communicate the changes to the Parks and Rec budget to the community. It's an important service. I think we've talked to Joe Sheeran from our communications group about just that, about talking about how that connection happens. And we have the rest of this year to do that. There's a recommendation to provide some level of funding to maintain levels of service. Again, as I said, the Nature Center Task Force identified that same one. Understand the voice of the public via the survey. And I think, if you can confidently say 85% of the population likes their parks, that's a pretty good starting point. Create an inventory of sponsorship opportunities and grants that might be available. And then enhancing or calculating the Adopt a Park program, when neighbors and friends and family take care of a park, there's that, number one, there's a sense to build community, but number two, it's a way to offset some costs. So there's a natural fit there. We also recommend identifying sources of money outside of property taxes. So healthcare and Alina, joint marketing efforts, and then leveraging the 4th of July as a community engagement launching point. And then two big ticket items were a potential public referendum and restoring existing funding for programming. Both of them require a council action, but both of them are included in there.
Really good stuff. Really good.
The best part about my job is I just write what you all say. It's easy. Then the last piece of the values and philosophy, and I think this was important. aligning our values with potential partners, document and share the Park and Rec values that the Park and Rec Commission has already put together. Again, use the survey information to talk about the public value. Beth, I think this was your line almost as a quote, but we live where we live because of parks and closeness, and schools, awesome parks, programs draw awesome people. I think that was taken from the chat box. And so quality of life, we should promote that more. We do also want to include the Park and Rec Commission, get input of diverse populations and residents, find out ways that we can align our work with public safety. I used an acronym because I'm a government guy and I use acronyms, but the police department uses a thing called the Multicultural Advisory Committee. And that is really a group that was put together by the public safety director to help our officers gain cultural awareness and cultural competency.
That's huge.
It's a really great thing, and it exists. And I think Audra and I had an opportunity to meet with them, I think just last week, and they are eager to help. And so I think there's an opportunity for us to use that group that exists already to help us get better. So,
and they just got formed when, Mike?
I would say 8 months ago, 9 months ago.
Really new. Good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it really was it's a whole cross section of the community, and they actually serve on our police officer interview panels.
Good.
So it's not just cops hiring cops; it's police officers and community members rethinking how the department should work. And I think there's a way to do that in this work as well. I think the YMCA leads by their values. How can we use them to strengthen ours? Then medium term, right? The need to be flexible, and then also leveraging the work of the master plan to kind of help guide us, I think was the last one. So any comments on values?
No, you're right on. Now you're going to save this and then you're going to send it back out. So we got the final, right?
Mm-hmm.
Good.
So I'm going to stop sharing because I keep, you folks are over here on my screen instead of here. So it's important that I want to kind of look at you, but there's a lot here, and we have about, I'll say 25 to 30 minutes to talk to the city council. And we can help prepare presentations, but we need to know who is going to speak from this group. I checked my notes and I scribbled them too fast, so I didn't get a full recount or recap of who was willing to present. I felt like Dorothy was one.
Yeah.
So help me. Who else would like to present?
I would love to.
Okay. And then Beth or Vicky, did you agree to this? I'm wanting one or both of you. I actually want both of you to say yes.
My only thing is I live in Little Canada, so I have a passion for it, but I don't want to be like, I live on the other side of the tracks. Here's what you should do.
Okay. Vicky?
So,
Yeah, I'm open to presenting.
Okay.
Awesome. Yay.
I'm going to list all four. You don't have to, if you decide, even if it's just a slide or just a welcome and introduction.
I'm fine with that.
We can ask them not to hold it against you too, Beth.
Right. Okay, Beth.
I think I said I would do the
The
mission
values.
values.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good.
And Dorothy, did you mention at the last meetings that you felt that should be at the top of the list, so you wanted that to kind of lead off the discussion? Was that, I think, a comment I had written down?
Yeah, I think so.
Yep, you're right.
Especially with the strong results on the survey.
Mm-hmm. Good. All right.
So to that point, we should decide if we slide that in at number 1, and then do we just go in order with physical assets, number 2, partnerships and prioritizations, 3, service levels, 4, 5 is regional cooperatives, and then 6 is finally the funding portion of it, financial investments. Is that a good order?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, because a solution for financial is obviously we're building up to it, and that would be the final one. So, and then Mike, you probably want to put, only because we've revised it, you might want to add some sort of a date at the very top up here. Final revision as of, if it's today, Jan 19th or whatever, just so that there's a date on it, and that we had put time and energy into the first draft and the final draft. Or maybe you want to just put final draft or whatever up here, but.
Okay. That I can do. Does the group have any interest in either, I'm sorry, I'm going to sneeze.
Cover.
Nope, I'm good. I'm good. I'm all alone. Either how, and I'll look to Audra because you're going to know this question before I will, but like, when do the slides get distributed to the city council? Do you want to do a run through ahead of time, or do you want to just say, I'll take slide 1, I'll take slide 2 and 3, and we can kind of just make it for everybody? Maybe I'll look to Audra. What do you think would work the simplest?
It's up to the group, but I think, we want to make the process for you to get up, and talk to city council. It'll be through Zoom, so you won't be at the podium, but as easy as possible. What we really want is your input and your personal view on the process and the part you're talking about. So if it helps you for us to put the slides together ahead of time when we're dividing up the areas, and then you can add your personal touch to it, I think that would work well. But it's kind of the group, because we've got that unique situation where the meeting's on the 25th, and so the packet is getting put together now. And so I don't know, Mike, if there's some talk of waiting with the slides outside of the packet, or if you do need to get them in there by tomorrow. So I guess that all kind of plays into it, but the purpose would be to make it as easy as possible for all of you.
Well, I will say we have some extra time. We don't have to have it on, it doesn't have to be that Wednesday. So we have some time.
When does your packet go out? For Monday's council meeting?
It goes out Thursday. It gets hand delivered Thursday.
Like this Thursday.
Like this Thursday.
And Dorothy, I am bringing this to, as I promised, you guys will get to review these at the Parks Commission tomorrow night.
Okay.
So at whatever state that it's at, we'll be bringing it to you for your thoughts.
Hopefully there
like
won't be any changes.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like if it's what Mike pretty much showed today, just in PowerPoint format, I guess I don't really need to see a version or edit or anything like that for my part anyway.
Okay. I mean, I'll just say that in my brain, I see a welcome and introduction and talk about the group. I see 45 seconds or a minute talking about the process. I mean, we met, we talked about a topic, we really did a deep dive into which areas did you do a deep dive. And then the 6 broad categories, of the recommendations. And you might want to pick I don't know that you can talk about every bullet, but you might want to pick one or two or three
Mhm.
kind of key themes or key bullets. And then at the end of it is, what are you asking the council to do? Number one, and I'll say this very explicitly, you want them to accept the report. That's going to be written. I've already done that. I mean, just as a quasi legal thing, they have to accept that the work that you've done. So that's one of them. But then within there is, what do you want them to really focus on? And that would be, I think, the piece that I would, as you think about kind of how you want to close, the things that really are important.
Well, and that's just it. So number one, that's it. And then from a staff perspective, from Audra and Neil, that they're going to get direction from Dorothy and the Park and Rec Commission to move forward with these goals, recommendations.
Yeah.
That things are going to happen, that this gets put into a work plan, etc.
Yeah.
Not sitting on the proverbial shelf, but for Neil and
Right.
and for Neil and Audra, really as the two staffers, there is nobody else. And yeah.
Lots of work.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Will any staff be part of the presentation?
If you want us, sure, but I don't think I don't see a need for it. But if you wanted to call on Audra to reinforce a point, or call on me to talk about process, we're happy to do it, but I don't think it's necessary.
Okay.
I think that beginning intro where you talk about who was on the task force and how it came to be and the processing, that would be helpful coming from you.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm going to pull up only because you let's see, who would have printed it off? Lois, way back when, that list of who's on it, a complete listing gets put in the packet. Yep. So that they can see the diversity anyway, that's really important.
So Dorothy, are you thinking, we kind of talked about this with the Nature Center Task Force too, where, Mike would lead off, there's always an agenda report that kind of goes along with to give council background and the reason for the item and coming before our staff. So that would be something that could talk about the background, the history, and the reason for it and how they came to that decision, and then transition into covering the recommendations. And then that would break out into each of your different parts. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Audra, would there be a motion before the council then to accept it, or?
I think Mike's got the exact motion that will probably be going in before the
packet.
council. Like, do you have that?
I can have it in a second.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, I'm trying to type a couple of things here.
Sure.
As
To
you're
tell you,
going,
Dorothy,
Mike,
we'll be looking for from the Parks Commission, we'll just be looking for a general recommendation of approval of, what the task forces have put together, and, that you approve them moving forward to council for review. That's the motion we're looking for a recommendation from the Parks Commission tomorrow night.
Okay.
There was another question in there that I heard.
oh, I was just going to volunteer for one of the sections.
Oh,
I was thinking the physical assets would be one that I would want to talk about if
Okay.
no one else wants to pick it up.
No, go for it. I'd like to take the last one, the financial investments.
Yes.
Beth, you are our partner. You're muted.
Hi. Yeah, I could do the partnerships.
I think that's a nice cross section of.
Yeah.
All right. Just really quickly, the draft sentence I have on motion is a motion to accept the final report and recommendations of the task force and direct staff to prepare necessary next steps on implementation.
That's it right there.
It's for those who aren't in the legal or in the government world. Directing staff is one of the great phrases that councils have. They can direct staff to do a lot of things, and so we love it because it gives us really good clarity. So it sounds really formal, but it's not. It's just it's a clear way that says, "You have our blessing. Get to work."
Mhm.
So it's a good thing.
Right.
All right.
Could I ask a question?
Yes.
Do you feel comfortable with that, Neil and Audra? And then Dorothy, from your position as the chair of the Park and Rec, you guys all feel comfortable? That's the exact direction we need for the council?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right.
Okay. So I have 3 things that I'm going to do. Number 1, I'm going to send the final recommendations that we've just edited tonight to the group. Joe Sheeran and Audra and Neil and I are going to put together the slide deck and get that to the 4 of you probably tomorrow morning.
Okay.
We kind of got enough information, and then we can tweak it as we go. And so we'll get that into your hands and have that right away.
Do we have all the topics covered?
The one topic that I don't think you have an answer to is,
I mean, somebody's talking about it.
I just closed out, so give me a second.
Regional co-ops.
Yeah, we had service levels and regional co-ops are empty right now. So who would like to kind of take on?
And one thing while you're thinking about this, just to say too, is the council will have the whole list of the recommendations, like Mike had said, so they'll be able to review that. So we don't have to hit on every bullet point, when we're talking before council. It's just to kind of highlight and give your perspective, but they will have that whole list of the recommendations to review before the meeting.
Well, if you want, because it's going to be short and sweet. It's Neil's work, but I'll take service levels if you want, the business model, because it's short and sweet.
Okay.
And not to beat a dead horse, but on that list of people on there, the one I originally got from Lois did not have, and I just wanted to make sure he doesn't, I had to add him, but Nolan Cornell, the South St. Paul basketball guy. And then Neil, you weren't on the original one, but I just want to make sure that everybody gets on there, because it's got Vicky Lee, her appointee, citizen appointee. If it says appointee, is that that can be assumed because we're residents of Maplewood?
Correct.
Okay, good. And that was it. I just wanted to make sure that that's complete.
Okay. All right. I don't have anything else.
Good. Good job.
Do you know what time?
So the meeting starts at 7. There are I don't know if folks know this, but Steve Lucan, the fire chief, is retiring after 43 years with the department. So he's going to get a little video presentation and a little thank you, which should take about 12 minutes. And then the city council usually does a welcome introduction item. So that the earliest it would be 7:20 p.m.
Okay.
I believe, and the nature center may go first. So you would be looking at 7:40, 7:45.
And when does the survey that's being presented to?
We are going to do that at 6:30. So the council will have already seen it at a work session. So we sometimes do workshops and then we do formal meetings. The survey will be in a workshop. It'll be a little bit less formal and more conversational.
So there physically will be nobody in City Hall, or there will be someone in City Hall?
No.
It's all Zoomed. Okay.
It's all
Where do
Zoomed.
we get the invite for that? For the city
We will
council?
get that to you. The IT director, operator does the Zoom call for the council. So we'll get that link to you.
Okay. And one more time, our presentation, the whole thing is about 25 minutes, you said.
About 25 minutes.
Okay.
If you go longer,
Yeah.
you'll go longer. If you go shorter, you'll go shorter.
And then who's going to coordinate, Audra, Neil, or you, Mike, in case they've got questions?
The mayor will just ask the questions and then ask any council member might ask a question.
Yep.
The good news is you have a lifeline in Bill Knutson.
Yep.
So Bill can help you and he might actually, sort of be the first one to say thanks. And so
Good.
If there's a question you don't know the answer to, you've got lifelines with staff as well. So we're happy to step in if you don't feel comfortable,
And this is our new city council now. So we've got Rebecca Cave.
correct?
We've got Nikki, right?
Correct. So we have two brand new, it'll be their second meeting
Yep.
as a city council, as a new city council. So.
Yep.
Good questions and stuff that I don't think about. So continue to ask more questions.
Were one of the new city council people a part of the Parks and Rec Commission, or?
Yeah, Nikki Villavicencio used to be on the Parks Commission for I think 7 years, and she's now a new member of the council. So
Cool.
That's a good point. Yep.
Right.
Well, thank you all for volunteering to present some of the stuff at the meeting. I appreciate it. I think it'll be
You're welcome.
everybody will do well. It's a good
yeah,
mix. I like it.
and it's going to mean a lot more coming from you. I mean, they can hear from staff all day long, but I think it's really going to have a lot more of an impact when they get to hear from you members of the task force. So thank you very much. And yeah, I'm excited. Thank you again for all the hard
You're
work that
welcome.
you put into this. It was,
Yeah, this is kind of the cool stuff that honestly, 5 years from now when it works and everybody just goes, oh, well, it just works. They don't realize what it took to actually make it work. So I appreciate it so much.
absolutely.
It's not glamorous, but it's really worthy.
Good. I'm excited. I'm really
Good. Well,
excited.
I'm super excited as well. You've got 46 minutes of your day back.
Yay.
Oh,
Okay.
my dog will be happy.
Yeah.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you,
Thanks,
everybody.
everybody.
Thanks.
We'll
Thank
see
you.
you,
Good
we'll
night.
see you
We'll
next
see you
Monday.
on Monday.
All right. Take care.
Bye now.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Beth. See you later.